keep it real with ya.
But how does this explain the reason why people might try to like some of these people really go overboard with the way they hate me? Like I get it, okay? If I talk very directly and you don't like talking directly, then you just won't fuck with me. That's fine. Why are they hating me though? Like why do I have people who actively try to like destroy me, like they come after me like I'm living in their head rent free, and they're just like, I gotta take down Minu. like like people will say stuff like, I gotta put you in your place, I gotta knock you down a peg, and I'm like, knock me from where? I have low self-esteem. Like where are you trying to like knock me down to? Hell, like I don't know. And I'm like, what is it? What's going on? What's happening? I genuinely am sitting there confused. And she told me that the reason that therapists don't react to me as strongly as regular people do is because when someone tries to read, this is my therapist, when someone tries to read into what you're saying, and there is nothing to read into, and there is no double meaning, instead of them going, huh, I guess you are just asking me a direct question, they will put that meaning, they will project onto you whatever it is their insecurities are. They will project that onto you so that they can then argue with that. And it would always catch me off guard because, and I've said this in prior videos, sometimes I feel like they're arguing with a different person than me, because people will say to me that I said things that I did not say. Like I could read back my messages and be like, I didn't say that. Or I said this, but I just said this. And then you said this when you said this. And I'm like, no, I just said this. I didn't say anything else. Because people will project into you when they don't see anything. And a lot of times people will project onto you their insecurities and then argue with themselves vicariously through you. And it's so weird and it doesn't make sense to me, really. It kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense logically. But then when it happens in real time, I'm just like, what? What is going on? But one of the biggest things that I've realized in a lot of these situations where people like hate me and they react so negatively to me is, yeah, they do project onto me a lot. Because like the people who have treated me the worst are the same people who will be like, I know you, Minu. I know you. And I know this, and this about you. I'm like, how do you know me and I don't know myself? That don't make sense. Who do you know? Who are you talking about? And the same people who will do that, give it a month, give it a few months later, and they're going to be the same people who are like, you're this, and I'm sick of you, and I'm sick of your shit, and I'm going to make sure everybody knows who you really are, and all of that stuff. And I'd be like, but you still don't know who I am, though. Like, that's the part that's confusing me, because you don't know who I am, so how can you let other people know who I am if you don't know yourself? Because you've been wrong this whole time. And it's like every time people will be like, I know you mean it. Here's an example. Here's a really stupid example, right? I hate the heat. I hate summer, and I hate heat because I have chronic illness. I'm hot all the time because I'm in pain. So I hate the heat. People get sad in the fall. I get happy because it's cold outside. And I can sleep at night because it's cold. And so here, that's a treat about Minu, right? And then also fall is when we actually get more holidays. So yeah, I like fall and winter more than spring and summer. And I had somebody one time be like, I know you, Minu. You want it to be like 75 degrees outside and you can go out and and all of this stuff. And I've been looking at them like, where did this come from? What do you mean you want me to be 70? I do not want it to be 75 degrees outside. You know, or I'll mention like it was 85, 95 degrees outside. And they're like, look at Minu bragging about how warm it is. I'm like, warm, bitch, that's hot. I don't like this. What I'm gonna do? What I'm gonna do other than run up my light bill in the heat? You know, when it's cold outside, I can snuggle up in a blanket. I can get a space heater. Like, why? I should be looking at people like, what are you talking about? And then I realize it's because they like the heat They like the summer, that me talking about not liking the summer or me talking about liking fall or liking the cooler temperature comes off to them as if I'm either bragging or I'm lying about something, because what I really like is whatever the fuck it is that they like. And it's so weird. It's so weird. Like, I've had arguments with people where they accuse me of doing things that they do. Multiple times. I've had arguments with people where they accuse me of doing the exact thing that they are actively doing. Hey, now, stop it. Stop it. Morticia, go in your little house and leave your sister alone. Morticia, mind your business. Thank you. Sorry. Like, that's an example. Like, somebody being like, oh, Mina, you just want it to be 75 degrees outside so you can do da-da-da-da. You can go on walks and shit. I'm like, first of all, I don't even be walking like that. And second of all, I don't want it to be 75 degrees outside. I hate it when it's hot. Like, that's like a basic example, but I've literally had that situation happen. Or I will be talking to somebody and telling them something about me actively, and they'll be like, I don't believe you. You like this. You want this. And I'll be like, how you gonna tell me what I want and what I like as I'm explaining to you what I want and what I like? And then you just gonna say, I don't believe you. You like the opposite? What is happening? Make it make sense. And that's why I get so confused by social interactions, because this shit literally happens to me. You know, if somebody's telling me a story about how they got blackout drunk and drove to a new state, and this is a made up story, this isn't real. They got blackout drunk and drove to a new state. I'd be like, so no one was there to stop you from drinking and driving? And then they'll be like, Minu, I'm sick of your shit. I'm sick of you always judging me about my life decisions. You think you're better than me. You think that you're better than me because you don't drink and drive and da 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 da. And they'll go off on me. And I'd be like, I didn't say any of that. I just wanted to know why no one stopped you from getting in the car when you were blackout drunk. What does this have to do with me being better than you? What happened? And that's literally how wild and ridiculous my arguments with people will be. Because people will say something wild, and then I would be like, what? And then they would be like, how dare you? How dare you, Minu? And I'd be like, what did I do? And it's so crazy, and it's very frustrating. For one, it's very frustrating because it feels like I can't win, right? I'm saying exactly what I mean, and you still not hearing me. You still not hearing me, and I'm saying exactly what I mean. And this is a particular struggle when you're a Black woman in the corporate world, because being direct, as a woman in general, but especially as a Black woman, is seen as you being aggressive. And, you know, that's not a fun way to be characterized in your workplace, which can negatively impact your job opportunities. But asking questions of people and being open and honest about how you feel about things is always going to be misinterpreted. And one thing I will say, and this is to, you know, as I've worked more internationally, so like with people from other countries and different cultures and stuff, I noticed that corporate America is so white coded, specifically by white women. White men get to talk as terribly to each other as they want to, and they're just like, golfing. But particularly when it comes to how white women have defined what is an appropriate way to speak in corporate culture, it's so frustrating. And now that I've got the benefit of dealing with other cultures of people, it makes it even more apparent, because with other cultures, I can just say, like, hey, I need XYZ to do, you know, ABC. And then it's like, oh, yeah, sure, cool. Well, yeah, we'll do that. We'll get on that, Minu. But then, is this the only one left? This one. But then in a corporate world that's defined, where the culture is defined by white women, I say, I need XYZ to do ABC. And they're like, what are you trying to say, Minu? So you saying that we don't do our jobs? So you're saying that we're not updating our documents, we're not updating our systems? So you're saying that we're terrible at our jobs, we're terrible employees. So you're saying that you should get the promotion and not us? And then I'll be sitting here like, so I'm saying what? I said A, B, C. Where are all these other letters coming from? Why did you add numbers to what I just said? I did not say any of that. And I literally would have those conversations when it comes to working, especially with white women, but it becomes very prevalent in corporate America. Everybody has to say the other thing. They cannot say exactly what it is. They have to flirt around the subject. Because, for example, say someone isn't doing their job. I'm going to say, hey, so and so, I know we spoke about this 2 months ago, and I noticed that it's not where it's supposed to be. Could you, give me an update on that? Or could you get around to helping me with that? And that's literally just me being like, hey, remember that thing that we talked about? Can you do it? Thank you. And then they do it, and I was like, thank you. Yeah, moving on. Let me be talking to a white American woman, and she's going to be like, I cannot believe that you just said in front of everybody that I didn't do my job and that I'm a terrible employee. I'm going to try and get you fired now, Minu, because I hate you. That's how stuff be going. And it's very frustrating. And it feels like there's nothing I can do, right? Like it feels like no matter how clearly I speak, people will always read into it something else. And that is extremely, extremely frustrating. And so when I'm making friends with people, and I particularly gravitate towards people with trauma, I know I do, because I'm a very caring, empathetic person. And I see somebody struggling, I want to help them, I want to befriend them, I want to be kind to them, show them the kindness that I hope people give me. So I know I gravitate towards these people. But then I run into these situations where, because they have insecurities, and don't get me wrong, I got insecurities too. I just don't put them on other people because I'm very much into fixing myself. But when I encounter people who are not into fixing themselves, are not in therapy, are not trying to work on their self-awareness and all of that stuff, and they have these insecurities and they have these issues, it's so easy for them when they try to look for something that isn't there in me, in my words, in the way I act. It's so easy for them to just put something there anyway, make up something where there isn't, and then argue with me for doing something that I didn't do or saying something that I did not say. And it feels very futile because mental health is not super accessible. A lot of people either can't afford therapy or they try, but the therapist is terrible. And so they haven't found a good therapist. It's not very accessible. So it feels like as I'm on this journey of like making new friends and like trying to meet people and talk to people and being my genuine, authentic self, I'm still going to have multiple times where people decide that they hate my guts because they thought of me as somebody who I am not. A good example of this was, I can't remember her name from the video that I made, but the one who basically tried to convince people that I was abusing her or something, like she was like afraid of me. That woman, what was really interesting was people who knew me before hearing about what she had to say about me, people who knew me were like, what? Minu don't do that. Like, Minu's not that type of person. Like, there's no reason to be afraid of Minu. Like, she's the one who's like fighting football players so that they don't like drag her drunk friend off to some random place at a party. Like, literally Minu's the one trying to protect everybody, and you're like scared of her. And then it's like, but what does she do? What does she say? And then that person doesn't really have anything to say because everything they had was made up. And I wish that I had enough people around me to question stuff like that. But, every time I walk into a new room, a new situation, if people don't pay attention to my personality before the person who doesn't like me decides to destroy me, well, then everybody kind of gets on that bandwagon of like, yeah, okay, well, I mean, I don't know her that well. So if you say that she's like awful, then yeah, I hate her. She's awful, whatever. Like, and I've watched that with people who don't interact with me much become the ear to the people who don't like me. And then all of a sudden they hate me too. And I'm like, we don't even talk. What are you mad at? What did I do to you? But that's the thing. That's the thing. Those are the situations that I keep running into. And that's what makes it so, so difficult for me to have these long lasting, meaningful friendships. Because if you're not, and I'm not saying that you necessarily have to be in therapy, it'd be nice. But if you are not somebody who is self aware enough to understand, like, Minu's not saying anything other than the words that directly came out of her mouth, it's going to be really hard. And I know some people be like, oh, you should befriend neurodivergent people then. I have these issues with neurodivergent people too. Especially people who have adapted to the way that other people speak. So they've adapted to the reading into what people say and the saying without saying and all of that stuff. They'll do the same thing to me. They will project onto me whatever it is they're upset or insecure about themselves doing. And then they will yell at me about doing something that they're doing, even if I'm not doing the same thing. And they won't hear me. They won't listen to me. Communication shuts down when somebody gets like triggered. And that's not, again, I'm not saying this to put myself anywhere above anybody. And I'm not saying this as a way of invalidating anyone. If I think someone is triggered, I'm thinking mental health way. I think you're triggered. And if I think you're triggered, I need to figure out how, as your friend, to support you. Now, other people will say, I think you're triggered because they want to say that you're crazy, or they think that they can invalidate your whole argument by making it seem like, oh, you're triggered, you're sensitive or something. I'm not saying any of that. If I think someone's triggered, I want to genuinely help them and figure out what it is that happened and how we can avoid it in the future. But people don't get that. And my therapist says that if somebody spends enough time around me and they have that level of self-awareness and they get to a certain point where they've spent enough time around me, they will understand these things and they will catch on. But they got to get to that point. And a lot of people can't get to that point because the first time I say something that triggers an insecurity, they pop off and then they leave. And so it's going to be very, very hard for me to create a long-lasting group of friends. It's going to be very difficult. I recognize that. It's frustrating because it means that I constantly have to put myself out there as an adult to make new friends with people, because the majority of the people that I try to initiate a friendship with will probably last a few months, maybe a year, before I say something that triggers them and then they explode on me and then the relationship ends. So it's like a numbers game at this point with me, which is very frustrating. I don't want to have to do all this work. I would love to just like meet people and after the first month or two be understood and we're good. And it's just not like that. It's not gonna happen like that. Yeah, it's just frustrating, but it's also eye-opening and it's helpful. I might need to look into meeting more therapists. Those would probably be the best friends, because my therapist, every therapist I've had has absolutely loved me. And I love them. So I hope that I can get something good in the future, but understanding it now really helps me like identify when it's happening. And so, just one step closer to understanding who I am and how I relate to the people around me. So as I always say, you guys take care of yourself because you deserve it. Drink your water, eat your food, take your naps. No one can live in this body but you. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.